Hey, what's up, everybody? So stocks settled mixed. Dow up once again. I don't know how many days in a row up, but it's got to be a lot. S&P off a little bit, NASDAQ off a little bit. Hey, remember in the last video or the one before I said or I mentioned that some of the savvier people, some of the more savvy people are now starting to mention the very same data that I have been telling you about for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that is specifically the very stark collapse in bank credit growth. Okay, people are talking about that now. There was an article on Zero Hedge, the website Zero Hedge. I don't know if any of you read that. It's a very popular website. I don't read it often, and when I do read it, it's more for amusement, because that's like one of these gold bugs, hard money, Austrian ideological websites. So, you know, they have a lot of clowns on there, or they cite a lot of clowns like Schiff and Kyle Bass. So, you know, I read it sometimes just for humor or to get ideas of what I can debunk, because there's plenty of nonsense on there. But one thing good about Zero Hedge is that they tend to scoop, you know, come out before with major news stories before the mainstream media. So it's a pretty impressive site from that regard. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. There was a story there now that UBS, the big Swiss bank, is talking about the sudden collapse, and that's the word they are using, the sudden collapse in what they call the global credit impulse. And the global credit impulse relates to credit demand. All right, and they're looking at it globally, and they have a chart. And by the way, my MMT Trader report, I include the banking data every single week. So if you have the report, you have been seeing this every single week for weeks and weeks. I have been telling you about this. You've known this before anyone. But anyway, they put a chart in this article, their global credit impulse. Now, I've said in the past, you know, banks want to lend. Banks always want to lend. That is their primary product. That's how they make their money. You know, so they always want to lend. But you need credit demand. You need people to want to borrow in order for the two of those things to come together. You need firms that want credit, you know, that want to take on credit for that to happen. So UBS now is reporting a collapse, and I have used pretty much the same adjective because it is really stunning. I mean, if you look at these charts, this is not a nice gentle rollover and kind of a slowdown. This is just a sudden dramatic falling off a cliff, which it goes back basically to like September. Now, I've speculated you know, on the probable causes of this in my report. It's still kind of curious to me. I mean, I've talked about the slowdown in the fiscal flows in the beginning of the first part of the fiscal year, the first quarter of 2017, fiscal year 2017. But then the fiscal flows picked up, okay? But we still saw this deterioration in credit growth, and it's stunning. I'm telling you, we're talking about 30, 40, 50% contraction in growth. Now, remember, I'm talking about credit growth, because the nominal level of bank credit is still near, you know, near an all-time high or just below an all-time high. But the growth rate has really, really collapsed. And we're talking about every segment of credit. We're talking about overall bank credit, total loans and leases, commercial and industrial loans, consumer loans, auto loans, real estate loans. I mean, everything, everything. All right, and again, it just, if you look at any of these charts, it's fallen off a cliff. And if you look at the chart from UBS, which is in that Zero Hedge story, same thing, just plummeted, collapsed to negative. So, you know, other people are talking about this. I have been talking about this now for a while. I have been pointing this out to you. Certainly, if you get MMT Trader, I've been going into great detail on this. Not to mention the fact that the flows in the last 9 days. And I'm about to get the new Treasury data now, but that has dropped off in the last 8 days. Nearly a 90 billion negative swing from peak to bottom. 90 billion. I mean, we're talking, that is some serious, serious money there. So We know what that's from. That's from the IRS withholding tax refunds based on this law that went into effect this year. And the refunds will probably eventually catch up. I'm saying that right now. But in the meantime, that waiting, people are waiting for those refunds. A lot of people depend on those tax refunds, and firms depend on people spending those tax refunds. So it's going to show up. I'm telling you, the data is always, it's behind because it comes out, the major economic releases, they're every 30 days. This is just happening now. So anyway, UBS now picking up on what Mike Norman has been telling you. Don't get better information than right here, folks. You do not get better information. And on, the people who have MMT Trader, they get the best information. So go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com, and sign up for a 30-day free trial. Bye.